Happy holidays. I'm your host, Dory Robinson, and this is Tree Speech, a podcast where we learn about trees one celebration at a time. So I'm in a beautiful state forest that is not far from where I live. It's a little after 3 o'clock, so I'm racing against the sun. It's beautiful. It's so still here. There's just a bit of powdered snow on the ground. The leaves are just cold enough that they're crunchy under my feet, which is such a satisfying sound. The trees are so still and bare in such a beautiful way, just sort of open to air and space and whatever's next. There's a itty-bitty stream that's frozen with a bunch of leaves on it, and there are a bunch of huge boulders. When I need to make sense of it all, I go to the woods. So I'm taking a walk in the woods, and you, my friends, are coming with me. Beloved American author, professor, feminist, and social activist Bell Hooks, who passed away this last week, wrote many profound books and is quoted often for her beautiful thoughts regarding love. One passage in particular reminds me of the theme of today's episode, the Winter Solstice. It reads, "The light of love is always in us, no matter how cold the flame. It is always present, waiting for the spark to ignite, waiting for the heart to awaken." December tends to inspire a range of emotions, from the feeling that this time between Thanksgiving and New Year's is positively magical. Lights, decorations, traditions, food, drinks, and of course, happy memories and nostalgia. It's a time of delightful celebration. On the other end of the spectrum is the recognition that this is the darkest time of the year. For those of us in colder regions, we're preparing for true winter, snowstorms, freezing temperatures, and hibernating. Along with this hibernation comes potential for solitude or even loneliness. It is harder to see friends and family right now, especially with the arrival of a new variant. It's a time of understandable trepidation. Like past cultures, we must grapple with uncertainty about the future and find encouragement and inspiration to move forward. What I appreciate about this time of year is that it's both and. The melancholy can live right alongside bright hopes for the future. The winter solstice grants us the space to honor both the light and the dark. The winter solstice occurs when either of the Earth's poles reaches its maximum tilt away from the sun. The solstice will, in the northern hemisphere, take place on Tuesday, December 21st. The word solstice derives from the Latin word solstitium and translates to sun stands still. The early Romans, Egyptians, Druids, and others observed that by December, the fields were no longer producing crops. Leaves had fallen off the trees and many plants had died. Daylight hours were waning and the sun was getting lower and lower in the sky. And in a world without internet, almanacs, satellites, or knowledge of astronomy, the increasing darkness and colder weather inspired fear. What if the sun disappeared completely, forever? Each culture marked the ebbing presence of the sun in the sky, which sparked concepts of the birth or rebirth of the sun, or the need to encourage the sun to return. Fire festivals and rituals were born out of this association of the sun with light and warmth, and simply needing to stave off the cold. For instance, you might have heard of a Yule log, and perhaps even seen a log decorated with candles, or even tasted a bûche de Noël, a traditional French Christmas cake rolled to look arboreal. For many cultures, the ceremonial Yule log was the highlight of the solstice festival, and is a specially selected log burnt on a hearth as a winter tradition in regions in Europe and subsequently North America. The origins of these folk customs are unclear. Some say they began in Norway, where the Norse believed that the sun was a giant wheel of fire which rolled away from the earth and was beginning to roll back. In fact, the word Yule came from the similar Gothic and Saxon words meaning wheel. According to tradition, the Yule log must be brought from the householder's land or given as a gift, never bought. Once in the house, it was decorated with seasonal elements, greenery such as pine, juniper, and bay leaves, doused with cider, and dusted with flour as the wheat represented the harvest. Then the Yule log was lit and would be burned throughout the night. Now, traditions vary at this point. Many keep the fire smoldering for 12 days before putting it out. In Celtic tradition, however, the log was kept burning for only 12 hours. If the fire did not go out, it meant the household would be protected and have good health and harvest in the coming year. Different types of wood were associated with various magical and spiritual properties, and so Yule logs were chosen based on one's hopes and wishes. Aspen was for spiritual understanding, the mighty oak for strength and wisdom, pine for prosperity, and birch for new beginnings and fertility. I'm not picking my Yule log right now, but I do have it back near the hearth. I'll be using wood from a poplar tree. Poplar trees have extremely strong roots, and so they symbolize grounding, security, and resiliency. All of these, I think, are really valuable and important to me right now. Now that we know what Yule log we are choosing, we will also have to think of decorations, and we are in the perfect place for that. Let's start with holly. Holly symbolizes many things for different cultures. Pagans believed that the prickly thorn would ward off evil spirits. The berries are also poisonous, so that's another reason why it may ward off others. The Celts believed that the undersides of their leaves would provide shelter for fairies, who, in turn, would be kind to any homeowner who hung holly branches. For the Romans, holly was an emblem of the agricultural god Saturn, and thus used during Saturnalia, an ancient Roman pagan festival, which is the source of many of the traditions we now associate with Christmas. Christians continued the tradition of decorating with holly, with the red berries representing Jesus' blood and the thorns depicting his crown during the crucifixion. Now we've come to another wonderful Christmas tradition. With its evergreen leaves, yellow flowers, and white berries, mistletoe is often seen growing high in the canopy of fruit trees, maples, and oaks. But despite its warm, fuzzy, romantic association, mistletoe is actually a parasite which is siphoning off nutrients and water from its host tree. You might be saying, but Dory, why do we have positive feelings about this plant? Well, the positive implications of mistletoe may have sprouted from an Old Norse legend where Frigga, the goddess of love, tried to protect her son Balder, the god of innocence and light, by making every creature and even inanimate objects swear not to harm him. Alas, she forgot the mistletoe plant, however, and so mischievous Loki made an arrow from the parasite's twig and through a series of trickery guided it into Balder. Without Balder, there were longer and colder winter nights. Frigga's many tears turned into the mistletoe's white berries, and she decreed that henceforth anyone standing under the mistletoe would receive a kiss. Even enemies must put their weapons aside and declare truce for the day. Now we are coming upon a few more pine saplings. On Winter Solstice Eve, Roman priests would cut down a pine tree, decorate it, and carry it ceremoniously to the Saturnalia festivities. Pagan families brought a live tree into the home so that the wood spirits would have a place to keep warm in the cold winter months and hang food and treats on its branches for them to eat. The Celts, Teutons, and Christians also decorate with evergreen boughs and round circular wreaths of pine, fir, and cedar to represent the continuity of life. It is finally time to speak about one of everyone's favorite symbols, the Yule or Christmas tree. The exact origins are disputed. Some aspects can be traced back to Celtic, Germanic, and Viking traditions. Amongst pagans, the tree represented the tree of life, or the world tree. By the way, the sun I can see it setting, and I see a little bit of orange through the leaves. The practice of decorating with ornaments goes back to ancient times. It could be pine cones, berries, other fruit, as well as symbols sacred to the deities. The Christmas tree we know now, with brightly colored decorations and lights, developed in Germany and then spread throughout Europe and North America in the 19th century. Martin Luther is often credited with adding candles to a Christmas tree in the 1500s, but the first documented lighting of a Yuletide evergreen wasn't until 1616. In fact, candles are mentioned in almost every single solstice celebration, inviting a bit of light into the darkness. So if you're having your own celebration, it might be nice to switch off the lights in your home, light candles, have a little bit of time where you're working by candlelight for over dinner, over homework, reading, or have lanterns around that sort of make the mundane a little special and a little warm, and makes the long, dark night a little more real, so that that slight extra bit of light the next day is even more appreciated. I have come across this spot I've actually never been to in this part of the woods. So now we're going to talk about wassailing, which you might have heard of from Christmas caroling. Now, there's two different kinds of wassailing. One is the noun. It's the hot mulled cider with spices. But the other is to wassail, the verb meaning to wish health to. Pagans would wassail their oak trees, meaning that they would pour a libation of wassail. They would offer cakes that had been soaking in wassail, that there was some offering, some sense of giving back to the tree that's provided for them. Now, there's also the house visiting wassail tradition, which is the practice of going door to door, singing and offering a drink from the wassail bowl in exchange for gifts. This dates back to the Middle Ages, when the lord of the manor would give food and drinks to the peasants in exchange for their blessing and goodwill, which has since been supplanted with the tradition of giving sweets and treats to carolers, such as figgy pudding. They will not go until they get some. This practice is often associated with rowdy bands and neighbors who refuse to leave without free food and drink. Take a look at our show notes. We will have our own recipe for you to make your very own wassail. In many cultures, wheat was used to represent agriculture, hence breads, cookies, and cakes becoming a big part of this season. In particular, Christmas cookies can trace their history to recipes from medieval Europe biscuits, when ingredients such as cinnamon, black pepper, almonds, dried fruit, and ginger were first introduced into the West. Now, I mentioned ginger. Gingerbread was a specialty bread, since ginger had not been available until the Crusaders brought it back in the 11th century. Given that it was not readily available, there were strict laws regarding specialty breads in that time, so gingerbread was only allowed to be produced during the holidays. Another famous treat, for many reasons, is the fruit cake, which is made with candied or dried fruit. The earliest recipes from Rome listing pomegranate seeds, pine nuts, and raisins mixed into barley mash. The popularity of fruitcakes spread throughout Europe, but the recipes varied, again, based on what was available at the time. Once sugar from the American colonies became available in the 16th century, and once people realized that the high concentration of sugar could preserve fruits, this made a surplus of candied fruit, thus making fruitcakes more affordable and common. The American fruitcake story began in 1913 with mail orders from bakeries. Johnny Carson made the famous joke that there is only one fruitcake in the world which is passed from family to family. And just like that, fruitcake was out of fashion. If you're one of those few who are in possession of that one fruitcake that's going around, please send it to my father. He loves fruitcake. He doesn't see the problem with it. So, I'm going to take a moment to sit on one of these lovely boulders. because I brought some tea. Some of the best warming spices of the season are cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. Not only do they keep you warm, not only do they smell good, but they also have wonderful properties. Cinnamon comes from the bark of the cinnamomum trees and is used for protection spells, as well as love and healing. Nutmeg is the seed of the myristica tree and is used for good health and luck. Cloves are the dried flowers of the Syzygium aromaticum tree, and its oil has a natural antiseptic and antibacterial properties. As a pomander, cloves are used to stud oranges or other fruits, which represent the sun. Now, the colors of the holiday include green, white, silver, gold, and red, which brings to mind one of the most popular red plants, the poinsettia. The poinsettias are indigenous to Mexico, where they flower during the winter. In Mexico, they are called Christmas Eve flower, or Catarina. They take their name from the first U.S. minister to Mexico, Joel Roberts Poinsett, who sent the plants to the United States in 1822. Now, how did they become popular, and why are they associated with Christmas? Because of a legend, of course. A legend which tells the story of a poor young girl named Pepita, who, in lieu of being able to buy a Christmas gift for Jesus, picked him a bouquet of weeds on the side of the road. When she laid them in front of the church, they transformed into the bright red flower that we know of today. The sun is definitely going down now, but there's still quite a bit of light. So for those of us in the northern hemisphere, winter is a time without crops and farming. Often in the Middle Ages, it was actually a time of famine. Elsewhere, however, it is a time to celebrate the harvest. This is the case with Kwanzaa, which is rooted in first fruit celebrations found in cultures throughout Africa, both in ancient and modern times. Created in 1966 by Maulana Rang Karenga, Kwanzaa is an African-American and Pan-African holiday that celebrates history, values, family, and community. Kwanzaa is celebrated for 7 nights. During each evening, the family gathers and they discuss one of the 7 principles of the holiday. These are values of African culture which contribute to building and reinforcing community among African Americans. These 7 principles are unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, and creativity. Along with 7 principles, Kwanzaa also has 7 basic symbols which represent values and concepts reflective of African culture. A kinara, a candle holder for 7 candlesticks. Mishuma Saba, 7 candles. Mazoa, crops. Mahindi, corn. A unity cup, and zawadi, gifts. The sky is now a little bit pink, which is really lovely. There are countless solstice traditions across the globe, and I'm sort of in amazement of them. To highlight just a few, Dongxi, the arrival of winter, is an important festival in China. It's thought to have started as an end-of-harvest festival with workers returning from the fields and enjoying the fruits of their labor with family. Special foods such as tang yuan, glutinous rice balls, are enjoyed. Soyal is the winter solstice celebration of the Hopi Indians of northern Arizona. Participants ceremonially bring the sun back from its long slumber, mark the beginning of another cycle of the Wheel of the Year, and work on purification. Pahos prayer sticks are made prior to the ceremony to bless all the sacred underground kiva chambers, which are ritually open to mark the beginning of the Kachina season. Yalda, or Shab Yalda, is the Persian festival of the winter solstice. It's traditionally viewed as the victory of light over dark and is the birthday of the sun god Mithra. Families celebrate together with special foods like nuts and pomegranates, and some stay awake all night to welcome the morning sun. So this is the time when people are cozying up indoors for obvious reasons, and it's the perfect time to share folk tales. One interesting tale that I only just learned is the legend of the Deer Mother, the feminine source for the story of Rudolph. Long ago, people believed that the Deer Mother took flight on the longest, darkest night of the year, the winter solstice, carrying the sun's life safely in her antlers, all while drawing the sleigh of the sun goddess behind her. Known as the life-giving mother, Deer Mother has long been associated with the gifts of fertility, regeneration, and the rebirth of the sun. In ancient drawings and pictographs, her antlers are often depicted as the tree of life, carrying the sun, moon, and stars. Now, in Siberian legends, the reindeer took flight each winter after ingesting hallucinogenic Amanita muscaria mushroom, the archetypical red toadstool with white spots. Shamans would join them on a vision quest by taking the mushrooms themselves. Climbing the tree of life in her horns, they would take flight like a bird in the upper realms. Other folktales tell how shamans, dressed in red suits with white spots, would collect the mushrooms and then deliver them through chimneys as gifts on the winter solstice. That is a truly wild night. So this solstice, take a moment to remember the forgotten winter goddesses of old and their magical reindeer. Look out from your warm, cozy home into the cold of the darkening eve. And on the sacred night when the sun is reborn, look for Deer Mother flying across the starry skies, carrying the tree of life in her horns. I have reached a path that I did not take before. I decided to take the path unknown, and that has made all the difference. So the primary intention of most Yule and winter traditions and winter solstice celebrations is to release the dark and welcome back the light, both literally and metaphorically. What's interesting to me is that to celebrate the light, the darkness must also be honored. You don't shove the idea of dark away. You don't dismiss it entirely. You bring the darkness in. You admit it. You take time to spiral within yourself and acknowledge perhaps the dark parts of yourself or your dark thoughts or your worries or concerns. You take time with it and the wisdom that it shares with us. We're all in this in-between space. We have real worries, we have real concerns, and it gives us the time to say, yeah, this is real and this is hard. At the same time, it starts to bring a little bit of light into that darkness. We are finishing our solstice walk together. You've accompanied me all the way into the woods and now back out again, just in time to see those last rays of sunlight. Tonight will be the longest night of the year, but tomorrow there will be just a little more light and a little more after that and after that. So I hope you are able to mark this transition in a way that is celebratory, in a way that brings you joy. Thank you for hitting the trail with me. So, tree speechers, what brings you inspiration and light during these darker months? What rituals or traditions do you have to bid the year and this time of darkness adieu? And as we say adieu to another season of tree speech, we would like to share a poem, The Shortest Day by Susan Cooper. And so, the shortest day came, and the year died, and everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people singing, dancing to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees, they hung their homes with evergreen, they burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the New Year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing this same delight. this shortest day. As promise wakens in the sleeping land, they carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace. And now so do we, here, now, this year and every year. Welcome, Yule. This episode marks the end of our second season. From the little pear tree that survived, to the spooky trees that kept us up at night, the tree that served as a symbol for liberty, to the tree tales gathered from all of you, we have learned so much about our environment and ourselves. We began this season with the theme, Speak for the Trees, and we were so fortunate to speak with so many guests who do just that, advocate for trees and nature. There were architects, writers, firemen, artists, witches, and historians. Thank you to everyone for joining us on this new endeavor. We wish you a warm, inspiring solstice filled with light and look forward to connecting with you next season.